We just finished a session explaining the difference between using the social share icon here, the pin it, versus using a Chrome extension to pin images. Now, before we continue, what we want to do is just make one change to our account setting here. And currently it's password protected. We've unlocked it. We've added our billing information in, selected a plan, and I'll explain why so that the instruction video is a little bit more clear here. So in the case of pinning something like this product, you would expect it to look like this, where you'd have your description, your title, it matches up. But what was happening, as you saw in the last session, it was using the profile name for the title. It was showing up, as you can see, everything was using the same title. So it didn't matter which pins, and I went through another example here. So I've just deleted that section. I'm going to re-record right now because, as you can see, this is not going to be very helpful for explaining how it's going to work on your site. To clarify why there's a little discrepancy between the last session and this session for the video and the content, by choosing a plan in Shopify, we're able to remove password protected homepage. And we made a couple more changes to the site as we went through there. Our focus is to get to the rich pin validator. But as you can see, if we go into the business hub now, you'll notice from previous sessions, this was in process. Now it's installed, the Pinterest tag completed. We've resubmitted the catalog. If we look at our Pinterest tag, you can now see that the tag health is there. Pinterest does take a bit of time to catch up with things when you make changes. Sometimes you can spend a lot of time trying to fix something that's not broken. It just needs time. We'll go through these in a troubleshooting video session later on. But right now, we are still waiting for the catalog pending. Here's the dashboard. And what have we done here? So we've selected our plan. So we have an active plan. We're still on a trial though. One of the things we had to do was update all our legal pages. Legal pages are quite easy to update because you can just replace everything with templates. They'll generate everything for you. All you have to do is just the last one, the shipping policy, and you can just find a piece of stock information that matches your shipping policy and add it in there. Once you have those pages added in, you have to add them to your footer menu. They have to be on the pages. This is something that's a requirement for the product catalog. Make sure you have links to all your legal pages in your footer menu. So you just add a menu item and your pages will all show up under policies, and you just pick them and add them. And they're already added here. We just want to focus on the Pinterest integration. Pinterest requires these for the product catalog approval. And here's what our homepage looks like right now. What we want to do is fix that also up for the product catalog submission. And the way we do that was you go to your theme, customize. This is something a lot of times people forget to do, especially in the instructions. They forget to tell people, always back up your theme, no matter what you're doing here. So just download your theme file whenever you're making major changes. There's places you can undo this. It's just going to send you a backup. And the reason for that is it's so easy to make a mistake in here, even though we're going to just change a couple items. And in this case, just the customizing, we're just going to uncheck a few things here, because we don't want everything on this home page. We want to get rid of the information that's not relevant to our product. So we're just checking the I off here. That's going to clean up our homepage very quickly. All we want left is a featured collection is going to be our kid xylophone. Everything else can basically come off. As you scroll down, you can see we want to remove all this stock type information. Pinterest, when they do a review, they will not accept the site with this information on. You could customize it all, not necessary. They'll accept it like this, as long as you've got your collection on the homepage and your link for your policies. That doesn't mean they're going to accept it. That just means there's one less reason that they'll reject it. So we're going to save this. Changes are saved, and we go to refresh, and you can see what our homepage looks like. We're going to come back to our themes here. Go back to the view. And if you run into problems, switch to different themes for testing something. If you are running into a problem, it will save you a lot of headache. And the last thing they'll want you to do is verify your address if there's any mistakes or if you're missing anything in there. And we'll go back to our Pinterest app. As you can see on the Pinterest app, we resubmitted our account. There was an appeal button here. As you can see it within here, we'll receive a confirmation. Instead of getting pins that are going to look like this board here, where all the different products have the same name, same as this one. And this is why we had to backtrack this video a bit and start over. This just adds confusion both for yourself and as a visitor. So now our rich pins should be ready to go, and we can try validating them. We can go to our rich pin validate. We're going to just take one product pin, copy anyone you want here. We copy it and we can just add it into the validator. We can test it now, and now it's telling us that they're approved and on Pinterest. Now you'll be able to see that it's going to pull your product name. And like I said, so we have everything set up here. Now that we have rich pins enabled on our site, let's try this pin it button again. We'll use the same board here and we'll save this. You're going to see it now says baby music instrument and has the information in there. You can see this is being pulled. This is part of the rich pin data. Now I'm going to just go to our collection page. I just added an image to the collection page. So when we're on a collection page, you can see there's no share pin it toolbar here. This brings us to this next option. We have our Chrome extension pin it button, but if this was disabled, there would be no option for visitors to pin anything off your pages from your blog. What we want to do is we want to set your site up so that all the images are pinnable to Pinterest. This is what we're using right now along with the shared toolbar. We want to set the code up in Shopify so that any image is pinnable. And as we scroll through your help file, it can get fairly confusing, and you'll find that it's difficult sometimes to search in Pinterest when you're looking for something specifically, especially with the changes from save. It used to be called repin. We're looking for Shopify instructions. Sometimes it's easier to go to Shopify, but the problem with Shopify help files is that they tend to tell you to use an app, and often the apps are monthly fees on them. This is not something that you need an app for. You don't need to do extensive coding. And that's the other thing they often tell you to do. If you're trying to add something, they will often recommend using their Shopify experts. And if you get a quote from there, you'll see how expensive it can be. So we're going through the Pinterest help files. And what we're trying to do is build what's called a website widget. And like everything with Pinterest and Shopify, there's two ways to do it. In this case, you have a widget builder, and then you also have a little bit more complex way how to build it with some code. You'll notice that there is no instructions on the widget for Shopify specifically. And we've already done this, linking your Shopify and Pinterest accounts, but this app doesn't include the widget feature. Even if you go through your troubleshooting, there's nothing there. And as noticed, there's always two ways. There's also two other ways to do most tasks within Pinterest. And one is that you have to figure out what's relevant still, what's not out of date. So in the past, the save button was called the pin it button, the repin button. Like I said, it's difficult sometimes to find what's relevant and what's still currently working. And this is what we're looking for is the Pinterest widget builder. It takes us directly to the widget instructions, the save button. And you can see it's slightly different than the original file that we looked at. And there's also the developer documentation that they show you. And that gets fairly complex and it's unnecessary at this stage. So we're going to go into this widget builder and it takes us right to this little dashboard. This is where we want to be. And all we want to do is it's just giving you a preview of this button. We want to image hover. Okay, and we're just going to use the large one here right now. Again, there's lots of different options here to change styles to match it to the brand. But right now we want to show you how this works and how simple it is to add to your site. In this case, you just need to copy this code right here. And we're going to go back to our Shopify site and themes is going to come up. Because we're going to make a small edit code, what we want to do is make sure we have a backup. Even though we backed it up before, just anytime you're making a change here, make a backup. So we go to edit code and you want to put this in theme liquid. And it's right here on top. The easiest place to put it is before the closing tag. So I'm just scrolling down where it says body right here. We can just paste this in here, save it. If you do make a mistake, you can always go to the older versions here and roll it back. And now we go back to this collection page. If you refresh right now, a square show up over here. And there it is. There's the black square. Now this is different than the red one that's coming from the Chrome extension. And we'll pick an item and we're going to bookmark it. So this is, you can see the pin here, the icon has changed. It overrode it. It's over here also on the image, as well as you can see the red one underneath it somewhere once in a while. Okay, so we have our image here that we're saving and we're going to put it back into our kid's xylophone. See it now. And you can see the board disappeared on us. So we're going to have to go back to Pinterest here, open up our account, go into that board. And you can see now that it was a distinctive image compared to the other images. And you can see it matches the baby music instruments. It goes all the way up to funny. And again, this is part of our optimizing is that you can see funny gets cut off here. And we've discussed this before. The titles don't need to be this long. Okay, they're going to get cropped anyways. And the idea is to make sure you have what we call a Pinterest optimized Shopify listing. So the description here is using a lot of formatting features. When you go to Pinterest, what you're going to notice that they strip all the HTML formatting out of it and put everything together. So at least the first 50 to 70 characters in your Shopify description should be optimized for Pinterest. We go back here and check our pin it button now. And what you're going to see is you have an option now to select up to 10 images. So I'm just going to pick a couple random ones here and say next. And so now we're going to be able to pin 4 at a time. We'll put in the same one and see it on Pinterest. It's almost semi-automatic to list all your images from Pinterest. If you were to remove this extension, what you're going to notice is that this extension actually worked with the pin tool. So if we go back to the product here, now when you go to save it, it's actually going to prompt you to install that button. Okay, so this is what your visitors to your site will see. And what you're going to see is that the feature's slightly changed now because you don't have that option to select 10 at a time. So you can see how these things work together, and it can get confusing. So right now, you're thinking you could select any 10 of these, but if you select one, it goes back to here. We're going to try this again. We'll pick a different image. You don't have an option to select 10. And if we install that Chrome extension back, then we're going to be able to select 10 at a time again. Okay, we have it installed again. We'll do a refresh on this page, and we'll watch for that icon to come up. We go to save, and now you should see it back to selecting up to 10 images. I need to emphasize that these tools work together. They integrate with your visitor's Chrome extension. So there, we'll just pick a different image now. 2 images there, but if we click on the save bar, it actually finds more than 2. And the reason for that is because there's images down here. So it's pulling all of these images into the option to pin. And you don't want to do that simply because these are items for different products. So if you take a look at this set, here's a set of toys, and you go to save this. This is not a set. This is just one. So if you start pinning a set, it's going to associate that picture, especially now with the rich pin data. It's associated with this toddler children's and not the proper product. So you want to avoid that. Okay, now we go back to our collection. Let's go take a look at this one again. We'll just jump to the view here. So this is a collections for kids telephone. You can see as we scroll over this now, we have the save link here. And this is the one that belongs to the site. All right, so and it's going to allow you to save this. See it now, go back to it. And now you can see it's pulled in the information, kids xylophones, musical instruments for kids. So it's taking the category or the collection name. The name of the collection is also the name of the pin board here. To wrap this session up, we're going to explore a few issues that come up with variations with Pinterest. So this product here, they're using color as a variation type here. So we have 8 scales, 5 scales. You look at this is an 8 scale xylophone, and then over here you have a 5 scale that's shaped like a ladybug, but the title doesn't change. So what's going to happen if you go to pin this, and by the way, there's a save button now in my shortcut from the Chrome extension or browser extension. I'm going to use this one here. We're just add it to xylophones right now. And so we're on this page here. We're on this variation, and there it is, musical instruments. We click on it, and now we want to go to that product. And what's going to happen, it's going to go back to the default, right? It's going back to your 8 scales. That's your first one. If 5 scales was the first one, it would go there. So just, it's a heads up warning. Variations can be fairly tricky on Shopify to begin with, but when you're trying to integrate it with Pinterest, there's a couple caveats. This is one of them. It becomes more of a problem with promoted pins. So let's say we look at this again here, and we want to use this one right here for a promoted pin. It's a nice little image, and we're going to make up a new board. So, and that's what we normally do is we try to make another board, and we collect the pins that we want to put in a promoted campaign. When you're doing a promoted pin campaign, your board's going to be fairly prominent in your ad. We're going to pick something that's fairly optimized from a user perspective. So if someone is shopping for a xylophone, they're looking for the best one for their kids. So you want your name, in this case, isn't going to be a reflection of the collection that you have in Shopify, but more of your purpose of running your campaign here. So we're just going to use best kids xylophone. We're going to create this, and we're going to go to another product over here. Here's another one that has a lot of variations, and this is a really bad example. They use different styles here. So this is a set. This one here's a different set. So we're going to just look at a couple, and you can see how many different images. It's going to become very difficult to associate which images belong to which variation. Okay, here this looks like a tall image. We're going to take this one to start with, and we'll pin it also. And we're going to put this in our promoted pin. So we're going to use our campaign. And we'll do one more. We'll pick a different variation. And we could also use, just for a change, we could use this button here. Here's where this will work better for you in variations. Because the variation is always going to go to the same URL. And by the way, we do change those URLs. This is they'll be changed to UTM tagged. So, but for demonstrations here, we don't want to get too technical on the analytics. But we're going to pick a couple images here because they're all going to the same product URL. We also found that, especially when doing promoted pins, it doesn't matter if they're tall, square, The wide ones, they work also, but the idea is, and you'll know in your analytics, every audience is going to be slightly different, so it's not going to hurt. You don't have to be specific on tall pin. Okay, so you can have kind of a variety. Your analytics is going to tell you what's working, and then you can scale from there. And we've got a selection of pins there, and we're going to put them in our board that we've set up now for campaigns. There we go. We've got the start. This is actually the hardest part of your campaign, is to set up a collection of pins that you want to promote. They're all different. That's perfect. And you can see the names now: baby toy, musical instrument. So all of these will be pointed to the same URL. Doesn't matter. We did these first couple. If we click on it, you're going to see that you're always going to the first one. The other thing you'll notice, you're getting words cut off here because of the length. And over here, the words are going to get jumbled together a bit because of the formatting. Okay, so these are things you want to address before you do a promoted pin campaign. And that should wrap this up. We're going to go into this and we're going to look at it from a mobile in the next session.